Hi, everybody. First of all, good evening and welcome to another live stream, or good afternoon if you're watching this in the US of A. So, wherever you're watching it, it's good to have you with us. And a big shout out to Billy Piper, who's the first person I see in the YouTubes. Evola Sunglasses, good to see you here, my friend, as well. What I'm going to do now is my usual thing where I just want to jump across into the Gettr verse, and I just want to see if everything is live streaming smoothly over there. So it usually is a little bit of a delay. So whoops, let me excuse me. Let me just get that one up. Yeah, I can see our friend City Troll on the stream. Good to see you here. Yeah. So okay. So we've got lots to talk lots to talk even about tonight. Hello, Sean, by the way. Sean Ahern. Thank you very much, Sean, for being such a great supporter of the platform, by the way. Hi, Danny. I usually like to get my hellos out of the way to start with, so I acknowledge all of you folks. And we got action-packed conversation tonight. It's Jed and myself this evening. So I'm sorry the login is causing you a few problems, Billy Piper, to get onto the Gettrs. But I must warn you folks who are watching this on YouTube that we're going to turn YouTube off about 40 minutes in or so, something like that, because we're going to talk about something that's relevant that we cannot talk about on YouTube. So, hello, Stephen Moutre. Good to see you, my friend Stephen, Jean, all the folks I see in on Gettr joining. Thanks so much for being here. It's a pleasure to be able to spend this with you. Yeah, I should remember to point out that we put out all these podcasts, which I guess a lot of you people hopefully listen to. We put out a premium podcast every Sunday. It's still available if you want to watch it. And of course, all the standard podcasts are also available. Yes, Jane, it's been a while, but it's good to see you back. And remember, if you enjoy the work we're putting out here, then please consider buying me a coffee. There's a link below for that. And if you prefer not to use Buy Me a Coffee, you can go to DonorBox on screen now and a link below to that. So there we have it, folks. These are the ways in which you can support the channel. So hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of that. Now, listen, there's loads of stuff we could talk about. We could talk about the fact that Dr. Jill Biden's, who's quadruple jabbed, has come down with COVID. Oh no, for the second time. For the second time, Dr. Jill Biden's come down with COVID. I've lost track of the number of times her husband has come down with COVID. But I mean, my maths doesn't go that. It's not that good. So Jean says, I'm frozen on YouTube. I think it's your connection, Jean. I think it's your connection. Hello, Bob Davey as well. Good to see you here. Janice. Aloha to Donnie Girl all the way from Hawaii, the land of distant sun, I suppose. Albert, good to see you. Northern Monkey, all of you guys. Oh, Baz, all of the gang are here as well. Thank you all so much for being here. Thanks for all the kind messages. I should acknowledge that one of the things that, people do send me messages, and they're pretty much always really nice. So thank you very much for that. I do appreciate that. Sometimes in this information war on which we're all embarked, it's nice to have people saying, yeah, we appreciate what you're trying to do anyway. Hi, Vicky. Good to see you as well. So, I appreciate all the kind words. But we could talk about Dr. Jill Biden. I think she got rebound COVID because she was on a course of, was it Paxlovid? Yeah. Right. Okay. Hi, Republican Rocker, by the way. Good to see you, my rock and roll friend from the USA. So as I said, we got the topics that I want to talk about tonight. Let's flag them up before we get into them. I want to talk about how you demolish an economy. I want to talk about that to start with. Then, when we've had a good old run through that one, which should be quite interesting. Once we've talked about how you demolish an economy, then what I want to talk about is Dr. Anthony Fauci. Yeah, Mr. Lockdown himself. We're going to talk about Dr. Fauci. So, hi, Leslie, my friend, Leslie Olds over there on the Gettrs. Great to see you, Leslie. Such a great supporter we have in yourself. And then when we finish talking about demolishing Fauci, we're going to move across. We're going to turn YouTube off. We're going to turn Facebook off. And then what we're going to do instead is we're going to go just over onto Gettr, on Rumble, Odyssey D Live, and we're going to talk about the curious phenomenon, which I saw reported in the press, that twice as many people have died with COVID in the UK in the past couple of months. So in the summer of 2022, as they did in the summer of 2021. Why might that be? Well, I'm afraid this is so dangerous, so kryptonite for YouTube and Facebook, guys. It's not me wanting to do it. I have to turn it off, or they will ban me if I speak frankly to you about some of the informations we have on why these stats might be the case. But we can't talk about it just yet. So anyway, yeah. So without further ado, let me bring onto the stream here, before we get stuck into the topic of demolishing, well, Western economies, the UK economy in particular. Let me bring, of course, my producer and fellow presenter on a Wednesday, and that's Jed. Jed, welcome to the stream.
Good evening, David. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're having a great week. As you can probably tell, I'm back to full strength, so thank you for all your kind words. But I'm back, and I'm here to stay. Don't turn around and play that sadly. No, I won't go into another song.
No. I think we probably save that, Jed, for an end-of-year musical special or something. We should do. Maybe that's how we finish 2022 with a bang and a song and a dance. So right, so Jed, the first thing I wanted to talk about was essentially what I see as the controlled demolishment of the United Kingdom's economy. Now, everybody watching this, wherever you are, if you're in the States, if anywhere at all, really, you will be aware of things like inflation absolutely surging, and all the concomitant pressures that puts upon ordinary people. So I've been detailing this, Jed, now for absolute months. I've been talking about the fact that I disputed the Bank of England's forecast for what they said would be inflation. Remember, the Bank of England is tasked. Their only job really is to keep inflation at 2%. And I've been continually criticizing them, saying, well, they're completely failing. And they were forecasting, Jed, it would move up to 4, 5, maybe 6, could be 7, and then it's 9. Now it's, I think, 13% they're saying by year end. And Citi, the financial institution Citi, are suggesting UK inflation could get to 18% by January. Now, it's important that we put this, put this up front. So that's the reality. 18% of your wages and income is going to be swallowed by inflation, right? Which brings us then to the first headline, which we want to chat about. So, Jed, if you can bring up this one here. Yeah. So the Trade Union Congress have unveiled a plan for a £15, I think that's £15 an hour minimum wage as the cost of living crisis bites. So that's what the TUC are saying. And in a way, Jed, it's madness, because the current, in fact, just to put it in context, folks, Jed, I think you've got the current, I've got a slide with the current, yeah. Look, this is what the UK national minimum wage is as of April 2022. It's £9.50. So they're looking to move it from £9.50 to £15, which by any miles is just over a 50% increase. So, Jed, that's a problem, because I would like to know, where will the small employers, medium-sized businesses, where are they going to find this 50% increase in funds to pay for this massive increase in the minimum wage?
Tree. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, money tree. That came to mind, and I listened to this morning, David, actually, to an economist on vaccine radio with Field Marshal Julie Hartley Brewer of the 1st Battalion, the Ukrainian
volunteers.
Absolutely, yeah. And she tried to say that an increase in the minimum wage to £15 an hour would not cause inflation.
It would.
But
No,
when Julia Brewer pushed back, she did push back. He said, well, if all wages go up, that means the cost to the employer goes up. That means the cost of the goods then has to go up because they're making less profit. And therefore, your £15 an hour doesn't go as far as you thought it was going to do when you were on £9.50 an hour.
Yep.
Because everything is relative. And she went,
Yep.
yes, but and literally she came back and went, yeah, everybody says that, but there's no proof of it.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought to myself, hang on, you're supposed to be an economist who go, oh, well, yes, there is that possibility that could cause inflation to rise because everybody's wages has gone up. All the cost of everything else has gone up to pay for the wages. It's a vicious circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but this is the problem. It is a vicious circle. And I do understand that, people on a minimum wage, Jed, they're the people who have obviously the most modest incomes. So they are people who will be very badly hit and are being hit at the moment. And they'll be hit even more as we go into autumn and winter, as prices continue to rise, as energy, as energy prices double and triple. I fully get it, guys. This is me sounding as socialist as I've ever been, probably. I fully understand the concern that those people will have. But, Jed, to the point, if you raise, double everyone's wage, if you double everyone's wage, you'll have twice as much money, and inflation will go up 100%, and you'll be no better off, to the point that you were just making, Jed.
That's right, Dave. It's absolutely right. You can't just. They tried it in a few states in America. And I know City Troll, who's listening over on Gettr, will probably tell me the cities where it happened. But they tried that, and everybody thought, oh, great, coffee shop workers, baristas will get $15 an hour. It'd be absolutely brilliant. You know what actually happened? Nope. They put more people out of work.
Yeah.
Because the barista shops couldn't afford to have 5 or 6 baristas or whatever it was on $15 an hour. They could only afford 3 of them. And I know our friend City Troll will tell me what cities this was trialled in. And it was a catastrophic failure. You cannot artificially inflate people's wages because all you will do is either put them out of work or cause inflation.
Yeah, well, fundamentally, I oppose the concept of a minimum wage. I always have. It's a socialist thing. It's been injected into so-called conservatism. I disagree with it. But even if you accept the premise, you cannot expect a 50% hike in the monies that are paid to certain workers and not see that reflected in the output, whatever the output is. The only sector this could conceivably work in is the state sector. The state sector, because they can afford to pay themselves any amount of money, because
but again, it comes from taxation. So to be able to pay, the state, your civil servants and what have you, to be able to take their money up, David, the government just has to raise taxes. And if it continues to raise taxes, then people want more wage. And if they want more wage, then prices go up. And that is the bottom line. You can only have an increase in wages if productivity goes up, but it goes up in line with those wages. To artificially say we have high inflation right now, and therefore we need to lift wages, just causes more inflation. It should be the other way around. As inflation goes down, you can gently raise your wages slightly. But it has to be in balance. It is a balancing act. And when you've just spent 2.5 years printing money like there is no tomorrow, this is what you get. And the only people that ever suffer are the people that go out to work every day, your Morrisons, your taxi drivers, you name it, those that just go out and do an honest day's graft and don't work for the civil service, guaranteed wage for life with a decent pension, that go out and graft every day, just think, why? Why do I bother? I'll go on the dole, and that just causes more inflation.
There's a number of good comments that I see coming in, which I want to read out. Wooby Bird says, this is an assault on small businesses, which is beyond cynical. Absolutely right. Albert says, Clutterbuck says, 30,000 a year for flipping burgers. Why bother with an education? Northern Monkey points out the slow march to a universal basic income.
They're doing it in Wales already.
Yeah. So those are all great points, Jed. I think that this is the problem.
I'm all for people getting paid. What you see, everybody knows I'm self-employed, and I have a range of what I call my fee range for when I'm looking at contracts and looking at doing work for clients. I have a range of which I think is acceptable for the quality of my services. Now, I could go BS to that. I'm being hit hard now. I'm going to add another, I don't know, I'll just pull a figure out just to make it easy. Another £100 per day on what I want for my fee.
Yeah.
But one, I have to ask myself, am I worth that extra £100? And is it fair? Because you could price yourself out of the market, of course, being self-employed. Could price yourself out, and I don't want to do that. But I also want to be fair, because I often work on contracts where the ultimate payer of the bill, and I mean the ultimate payer of the bill, is the taxpayer. And I have to think, I do think to myself, am I ripping the taxpayer off by asking what I'm asking for my skills and services?
Yeah, exactly. But the state sector doesn't have to do that. By the way, David Meller over on YouTube, I agree with you. David says the whole world is on a catastrophic course to take us into a massive depression, leading to the Great Reset and universal basic income for everyone except the elites. Jed, I don't think there is any doubt about this. I mean, we're being led by the nose here into what will be a very, very tough autumn and winter, whereby inflation will be raging at about, I reckon, about 20%. People will feel that when they, not just in terms of going to the shops and buying goods, they'll feel it in terms of putting petrol in their car, putting oil and gas to heat their homes. They're going to find all those things, and that's a pressure point. And I think everyone's more or less going to be caught in this, apart from the absolute multi-millionaire elites, don't you think?
Because I do. In fact, the people that won't be caught in this are the people that make the rules and make the policies. I'm just going to give you an example, David. I've just been I've just purchased a brand new kitchen that's obviously not fitted yet, but it will be in due course. And now I had the option to pay a deposit, and then once it had been fitted, I could then pay the balance over a 12-month period. So I thought, I'll go with that, because that leaves me that money in my bank account another 6 months or so. And so what they wanted was evidence I had the money to be able to afford this. And I sent them all that evidence. And the thing they kept saying to me is, your online bank statements don't have your name and address on them. And I said, no, online bank statements don't. The nature of the fact that I've had to, authenticate to get into that bank account to be able to give you those statements and savings and stuff. But clearly you can see I have the savings to more than cover what I wish to spend. But your bank statements don't have your name and address on. So, in the end, it was the same bank. I just went back down to the place where I'm getting my kitchen from, and I said, right, tell them to shove it where the sun doesn't shine. I'll buy it on credit card. So I bought it on my credit card from the same bank. And, it went straight through. It's unbelievable. I could prove I had 2 or 3 times the amount of money I needed to pay for the kitchen. Because the guy who designed the kitchen kept saying, yeah, but they're just worried about people, in the cost of living crisis. And I kept saying to him, it's not a cost of living crisis, it's a cost of lockdown crisis.
Yep.
That's what it is. This is what it is. This is if you get a government that spends 2.5 years printing money, this is what you end up with. And only people like me and you and all the good people listening, they're the ones that suffer.
No, you're right. And you're right to point out it's not a cost of living crisis. It's a cost of lockdown crisis. It's a cost of supporting the foolish activity in Ukraine. And I know that for our friends in the States,
I know sanctions are doing great, aren't they? They're really hammering Europe and the UK. Oh, sorry.
yeah, but I say, by the way, I do see the comment there that over in the States, Republican Rocker says we're facing a global economic collapse, a zero-sum gain for the middle class. It'll be worse than a zero-sum gain. It's going to be a loss for the middle class, and it's going to be a crucifixion of the working class, I'm afraid. Jed, you've got Louise agrees with your attitude.
I've always said that, David. When I started doing what I do after I left the forces, I always thought, one, I can only ask what I think is fair for my services, and particularly when I'm doing things where the taxpayer ultimately pays in the end. Am I ripping the country off? Because you hear, everybody knows I work in IT. You hear of all these IT contractors that are ripping the government off. Tens of thousands of pounds a day for the consultancy fees. I'm not on that. Don't worry about that, guys. If I was, then woo. But the point is, I always think, am I giving value for money, and is it fair for what I do for the quality of service I give? And that's it. That's all I ever do. So I'm on what I think is a reasonable amount for what I do, and I'm happy with that. If my life gets a little bit harder over the next, or a bit harder over the next few months, or 6 months, or whatever, or a lot harder, would I revisit? Well, I probably wouldn't be able to raise my fee either, because they'll just say, well, you're doing the same work, so why should we pay you more? And in fact, I'll tell you what, we'll get a 20-year-old and we'll pay him half of what we're paying you.
Yeah. I know it's going to be very, very difficult. What's ahead of us is going to be very, very challenging, and workers will try to strike. They will. At the moment, I'll give you, for instance, and if I've still got my friend Stephen Moutre on the Facebooks watching me in this one, he'll know about this. In my local council area, Jed, for the past 2 weeks, no bins have been collected. No bins. They're on strike. The local bin men and some of them are on strike, and so they're not collecting any bins. I live in a country setting, so that's about the only thing I get from the council in terms of a direct service. Well, there's been none. That's going to continue for another 2 weeks. So in the heat of summer, when bins are overflowing, when if it's young mothers and they've got nappies and stuff that they've had to put in the bins, you can imagine after 4 weeks what that's going to look like. And yet I can sympathize with the council workers at one level, because again, they're trying to sort of protect themselves against inflation. Although I certainly think that it's the wrong way to do it, to hold us and people like me to hostage, but that's just another little example. And we're going to see more and more and more about this. I postulated the other day in a podcast that I remember my grandmother talking to me about the general strike that happened in the UK in 1926. I remember that. And, could we have another general strike? It's not impossible. It's not impossible, because more and more people are wakening up to the stuff, Jed, you and I put out every day.
That's right, David. But if you think, I'm sorry to cut over you, but if you think at the moment, really, who is striking? It's the people it's the rail workers and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So in effect, we don't have a privately owned rail service. What we have is a publicly owned rail service that has profits for shareholders. Because when, for example, I go and get a train, not that I would, my ticket, let's say, is £100 from Manchester from where I live to London, £100 return. But that ticket really should cost, for argument's sake, £150. The government pay the other £50. If I don't get on that train during lockdown and that train is absolutely empty and it doesn't even run, and it holds 600 people, then the government pays £150 to the rail company. So they haven't lost a single penny. The workforce haven't lost a single penny. A train driver is on £60,000 minimum, £60,000 a year. And they're going out on strike.
Yeah, but
because they can. Because real workers, my point here, David, sorry, my point here, real workers who work in the private sector cannot go out on strike. Why? Because your employer will say, goodbye. Sorry, we no longer need that role anymore. So we'll cancel that role. You're redundant. And then they'll go back to the Labour force and say, right, we now need to employ another one instead of Jed. But this role is called 1, 2, 3, where Jed's role was called ABC. That's how we can make him redundant.
Yeah.
Role, and we'll get Jed at half the price.
Well, of course, Jed, it's not just the real workers that are striking, because we actually have in the UK, the barristers are on strike. And I think we might have a link to the barristers striking, which it's got to be the most, it's this, mate. It's funny, this really. Criminal barristers in England and Wales are going to go on an all-out strike from, I think it's the 5th of September. And I actually, Jed, I didn't realize, I looked at this chap here, and I thought he looked familiar. And then, of course, I do recognize him. He's Sean. Yeah, he's the guy off The Chase, Sean Wallace.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, the barristers are going to go on strike on an indefinite strike. They're looking for, get this one, folks, a 25% rise in pay. 25%. 25%. Get that one, folks. Barristers. Have you ever met a poor barrister?
David, see, they've done the trick. They've done the trick that squaddies used to do. And I'll tell you what that trick is. They take what is a good wage and they divide it up by how many hours they work. And because they work up and above the standard 40 hours a week, where they're doing work in the evenings and etc. So if you divide it by that, then you end up with being able to say that you earn less than the minimum wage. Yeah, because squaddies is the same. For example, as a sergeant at the time I was, back, 10, 15 years ago, I was getting probably about 36,000, 37,000 pounds a year.
Yeah.
But because I was there to work 24/7, if you divided it by 24/7, my minimum wage was next to nothing. So a private soldier on £16,000 a year, a brand new private soldier, you divided his by 24/7, he was on pennies, 50p an hour, or whatever it was. That is what they've done. That's why I noticed what they did in an interview that one of them gave on Vaccine Radio. He said, we're on less because if we do 100 hours a week and you divide that, blah, 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 yet they're on £60,000 a year.
Yeah, I actually see Louise Richards over on YouTube has said that the cost of a barrister per hour is 800 quid.
Yeah.
A solicitor is £300. Thanks, Louise, for that one. Yeah, 800 quid. It's not enough. We need 25% more. I'm sorry. I see your comments, Leslie, over on Gettr. Your heart bleeds. So does mine. But then the other thing is, I think we have to slide in this one as well. We're rattling through a couple of these ones to make up some ground here. UK inflation. I mean, this is the thing. Yeah, UK inflation. Look, UK inflation even could peak at 18%. I mentioned this earlier. I mean, I think
look at the clean woman that's telling you. That's that lunatic that works for the government. But the thing is that I reckon they want inflation to get to 18%. I do. You know why, David? You said it before. It's by design.
Yeah, it's demolition. This is,
and you'll be happy.
Exactly, Jed. And they've got 8 years to get us to that point. And they used COVID, in my opinion, although I'm in YouTube, so I have to be a bit careful. They used COVID for particular reasons. And sorry, I see Ultron says, who will defend all these doctors fighting deportation if the barristers go on strike? Oh, yeah, that's all the doctors and nurses, doctors, brain surgeons, and poets who arrive in record numbers on our southern beaches. Ultron, isn't it? Those doctors. Who will defend them, indeed? A couple of other comments. Cineworld is gone. Yeah, I know Cineworld is gone. I used to have shares in Cineworld. Don't anymore, I hasten to add. Just reading some comments. Donny Girl says, this feels like 2008 in steroids. Yeah, excellent comment, Donny Girl. It does indeed. Again, fair play to Louise, Jed. I'm sure you'll agree with that content. How many?
Yeah, I do, and it's very kind of Louise to say that. But I knew what I was getting into. Well, I said that actually when I think back, and I thought, oh, my brothers are in the army. I'll join myself. It'll be fine because when the last war was the Falklands, and then what happened 3 years after joining, we went to Iraq, and it never stopped after that. But
Yeah,
never. I
know.
knew what I was signing up for, and I took the Queen's shilling for that because I thought that would give me a better future in the long run, and it has. He's put me here tonight with you guys, with you, David, with all our friends here on the stream. So I'm happy with that.
I say John Hillhouse points out over in Gettr, one of his customers who's a QC charges about 2.5 million just to look at a case to see if he'll take it on. Yeah.
Well, that's it. Julie Hartley Brewer went through. Yes, they pick the lowest people that have just become a barrister. The junior.
Yeah, we use that game. Yeah.
But actually, after 3 years or 5 years, and so on and so on, the money racks up, and very quickly, when you become a senior barrister or whatever they call them, at 10 or 15 years, you're talking £100,000 plus per.
Well,
so let's not feel sorry for them.
No. As I said in a podcast, Jed, I've worked with 2 QCs in my life, both political figures as well. And let's be honest, the living was relatively easy. So we just have to say that. I don't dispute that they're good at their job, but do they need a 25?
Barrister committing suicide, just like you don't see a bookie committing suicide.
Exactly. It is that thing. But the very final word in this one, before we move on swiftly, is a final link, Jed. And this is about the impact that this is all going to have. Again, I'm going back to small businesses, the backbone of Britain and the backbone of the US as well. And yes, it is this link here because this energy crisis will destroy viable firms. That's the point. This is how they demolish the firms, the companies, the businesses, Jed, that survived the COVID lockdown and managed to hang on. They're going to take them now and they're going to wipe them out using energy crisis. And, I've talked about the fact that if you are in an energy intensive small business, like a hairdresser, like a tanning salon, I'm sure you could think of other ones, Jed, where you're using quite a bit of energy. Your costs are going to go up massively. I've seen one hairdresser.
Laundrettes that people have to use because they can't afford their own washing machines and what have you. There's one around the corner by the petrol station near me. The price that people can't afford a washing machine and a dryer, so they go around there and put 10 bob in to do a wash and and a couple of 10 to do some drying. They're not going to be able to afford that, because their energy prices are going to go through the roof.
That's right. Yeah.
You're right. It's by design. Why do they want all these small businesses gone? Because what they can do is keep you sat in your home on a basic universal income, with no car because you can't afford one. But don't worry, there will be some public transport coming along at some point that will go somewhere near where you ever might want to go. But don't worry, because then you'll have an e-scooter that you can rent and zoom down the road at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour and knock some old pensioner over and kill them. But don't worry, because that's fine. That's fine. That's progress. Yeah. You can go then and buy your little block of green, your little, which is your vegetables, your little block of brown, which is your meat substitute. Yeah, you freeze dried this, you freeze dried that, and then you can hobble off back to your own to the cube that we've given you to live in. And you will have your 30 minutes of heating per day, your 30 minutes of hot water, and you may watch TV for 1 hour every fortnight.
Yep, no, I agree. Just a shout out to Melanie Bliss. Melanie on the YouTubes, thanks for joining. Hi, John Gleason as well, my friend. Good to see you, John. Back from walking the dogs at Luton Airport. But he hit the like button on the YouTube. Now, I have to say to Melanie and John and those others, Ultron and co, on the YouTubes, that we will be turning YouTube off in due course as we discuss more spicy content. But anyway, yes, as Jed says, the final part of the show can't be on YouTube or Facebook. So follow us together to get the meaty content. Now, Jed, I am sure you were devastated whenever Dr. Fauci announced that, yeah, he was going to retire. I think we've got a, yeah, I mean, I honestly, when I got the news, I had, yeah, I mean, most of us, yeah, I had to sit down, then go and lie down for a couple of hours. Because
I fell to my knees, I lifted my hands to the sky, and I looked up at our good Lord above. And
why, Dr. Fauci, stay?
Cried with joy, David.
Exactly. Well, you see, Fauci has announced that he's getting out in December. He's announced now his intention to retire by in December. Now, the thing about that is, of course, that the midterms are in November. But that's just as Dr. Fauci himself pointed out, that's just a coincidence. He could have picked any time. It's just accidentally within 4 weeks of what looks to be the Republicans gaining a political grip back on over Congress. But the bit I wanted to share with everybody, Jed, I think we've got the video clip. You see, Dr. Fauci is doing a little bit of free. There he is, stepping down, hiding behind a tree, actually. Strange photograph, but there you go. Maybe he was waiting to jump out and frighten people even and scare them into getting their boosters. Have you got your booster? Dr. Fauci recommends you get a booster on the hour, every hour, which, remember, because we're on YouTube, the boosters are 100% effective, 100% safe, Jed. Always remember that.
Oh, yeah, of course, absolutely, David. Yeah, I take my 6 a day, every day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're being sensible, and we all know that they all work. And then, by the way, I did have occasion to review YouTube's terms of service in terms of what you can talk about as regards this topic. And you mustn't say anything that contradicts the health advice of the World Health Organization. So that's nice. And that's what
Fauci does. I mean, about 4 or 5, in fact, about 8 or 9 times now.
Yeah, well, the thing is that maybe there's one room for Dr. Fauci, a different one for everyone.
Right, yeah. If you're on CNN and NBC and all those ones, and ABC, yeah, you can say what you like. Yeah.
Billy Piper's, I like Billy Piper's comment. Who's replacing him? Harold Shipman. Harold Shipman, by the way, those in the US who might know who Harold Shipman was, Harold Shipman was a homicidal doctor. He went about killing loads of his patients, didn't he? But anyway, Dr. Fauci has taken to the airwaves. And Jed, we've got a clip we want to share with you folks. And I think this is YouTube compliant because it comes from Fox News.
A reliable source.
Yeah,
there you go. But it's certainly not a little chubby friend that's just been sacked.
So exactly. Play this little clip, and then we'll talk about it.
Do you regret particularly the last one, the shutdown, the sweeping shutdown that some said made things worse?
No, I don't, Neil. And in fact, I think we need to make sure that your listeners understand I didn't shut down anything. I recommended to the president that we shut the country down. And the only way to do that is by draconian means of essentially shutting down a country. We know that we can do that if we shut down.
Well, I think one of the things you really need to do, to the extent that you can shut down temporarily the country, I think is important.
Well, if I knew at the time that shutting down would have such a dramatic effect on controlling the spread, obviously we would have shut down earlier. There are those who say you shut down, you do destructive things by disrupting the economy. And others say, well, if you save so many infections by shutting down, why didn't you shut down 2 weeks earlier? But I don't regret saying that the only way we could have really stopped the explosion of infection was by essentially, when I say shutting down, I mean essentially having the physical separation and the kinds of recommendations that we've made.
You've been a big fan of Cuomo and the shutdown in New York. You've lauded New York for their policy. New York had the highest death rate in the world. How can we possibly be jumping up and down and saying, oh, Governor Cuomo did a great job? He had the worst death rate in the world.
No, you misconstrued that, Senator.
Yeah, don't let the door hit you on the way out, Dr. Fauci. Jed, I was confused about that because we have Fauci there on camera saying that he never recommended lockdown. And then we've got about 10 different
No,
clips.
David. No, sorry. You misunderstand.
Explain.
The fact that Dr. Fauci said that he would have locked down earlier and longer and shut the country down doesn't mean he would have locked down earlier and shut the country down. You misconstrued in his words. You're coming out with the opposite of what he's saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, Dr. Fauci, he's a guy who's distinguished himself so much in the past, 2.5 years? The guy who told people that they shouldn't wear masks, and then he's told them that they should wear a mask. And then he upped the ante. He said, yeah, 2 masks. And then I think at one point he considered arguably more than that. And then he told them, don't worry about it, because once you've taken the totally 100% safe, 100% vaccine, that's it. That stops the virus. And then people had to take the second one, and then they had to take the booster, and then they had to take the second booster. I mean, again, it's weird, isn't it? It's almost like I'm not sure.
Almost like the opposite of what he says.
Yeah.
In some respects, because see, I don't want to repeat what he said because my name is not Dr. Fauci.
Exactly.
Yeah. With reliable sources, with Brian Stelter. Then I can't say what Fauci says without getting us kicked off.
Yeah, I know that is the issue, Jed.
Yeah, I can put words up on the screen, but I can't say them, and that is the world that we now live in, where I can't say the truth. I cannot repeat what the person in authority, which we're supposed to follow, has said. I'm not allowed to say what he says. What sort of world is that, David?
It's the world that the globalists want us to live in. That is the reason for it. But I did see this headline, Jed. We're going to bring it up. Before we do that, I see over on Gettr, someone's Twin77 says, I was a nurse and I wouldn't be allowed to work unless I had the jab. Hang on, Twin77, till we get to the final bit of the show. We're going to go in a lot harder on the so-called vaccines. But back, Jed, then, just to finish off this little section on Fauci, then we're going to talk. Fauci's biggest critics hint at the reason for his December retirement. He's trying to get out of Dodge. I love that expression, by the way. You American guys will get that. Love that one. This was, I think we had, it was Rand Paul, wasn't it, Jed? Two of Fauci's biggest critics were saying that they were speculating that he doesn't really want to be around when people investigate how he handled the pandemic, his involvement in research funding at the Wuhan lab. There you go.
Believe it or not, David, the BBC have now admitted that Fauci funded gain of function in the Wuhan lab. Well, the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, controlled by the UK government, have said it, not me. I'm repeating their words.
Yep. Well, John Gleason says, you all know it, guys. We are winning big time. Purebloods are the envy of the free world. We were right. Yes, John, we absolutely were. We stuck together during the teeth of all of this, and we didn't take the you-know-what. Now, that's what brings us neatly, Jed, I think, into the final section. So what I need to say to all of my friends on YouTube, we're now going to talk in much more detail on the COVID so-called vaccines. We can't do that safely on Facebook or YouTube, but we can over on the other free speech platforms. So I would urge you to jump on to Gettr if you can do that. So Jed's telling you now that we're going to move across over there. Now, Jed, I think I'm right in saying before we do that, we're going to have a little kind of intermission that lasts for about, I think, 20 seconds or something? Are we going to do that?
Yeah, that's right, David. Well, it'll just be the little bit of music as we would normally play. It just allows me to flick the buttons in the background,
Right.
turn off YouTube and Facebook.
Right. So everyone on every stream other than YouTube, we're going to be back with you in about 15, 20 seconds or so. Play the music, Jet.